My name is Lisa Carter. I'm 29 years old. And as I sit here staring at what used to be my engagement ring, I still struggle to understand how everything unraveled so completely in less than a month. If someone had told me 6 months ago that the man I planned to marry would eventually hire lawyers to come after money that wasn't his, I would have laughed in their face. Back then, I thought I knew Ethan Brooks. I met Ethan when he was 27 at a friend's backyard barbecue 2.5 years ago. He was finishing his master's degree in communications while working part-time at a public relations firm. I was a software developer who had gotten incredibly lucky. When I was 24, I sold an app I'd built in college to a tech company for $1.2 million. After taxes and student loans, I walked away with around $750,000. I invested most of it, bought a modest condo, and kept living as if nothing had changed. Ethan knew about the sale early in our relationship. What made me fall for him was that he never seemed impressed by the money. He never asked about account balances, never pushed expensive vacations, never acted differently after learning about my finances. Or at least, that's what I thought. We connected naturally. He was funny, ambitious, and easy to talk to. He had plans for his future, and talked about building something meaningful together. I fell hard. 6 months ago, I proposed. The look on his face when I opened the ring box is something I'll never forget. He cried. I cried. People around us clapped. It felt perfect. For months, wedding planning moved forward smoothly. Then came the dinner that changed everything. We were sitting in Ethan's apartment eating pasta when I casually mentioned meeting with my attorney. I talked to my lawyer today, I said. Ethan smiled. About wedding stuff? Partly. I took a sip of water. I asked her to prepare a simple prenup. His fork froze halfway to his mouth. A prenup. His voice had changed instantly. Yeah. Nothing complicated. Just protecting premarital assets. Anything we earned together after marriage would be split equally. Silence. Then he slowly lowered his fork. You're serious? Of course. The smile disappeared from his face. Lisa, why would you even want that? I tried to stay calm. It's standard. My investments stay mine. Your student loans stay yours. Everything we build together becomes ours. The air seemed to shift. I watched his shoulders stiffen. I can't believe you're asking me this. Ethan. No. He pushed his chair back slightly. You should trust me. I do trust you. Then why do you need a legal document? It's not about trust. His eyes flashed. It absolutely is. The conversation spiraled. He accused me of thinking he wanted my money. I explained that prenups protected both people. He cried. Then he got angry. Then he cried again. The emotional whiplash left me exhausted. If you really loved me, he said through tears, you wouldn't need this. I remember staring at him, feeling something uncomfortable settle in my chest. Not because he was hurt, because he seemed offended, almost insulted, as though the very existence of boundaries was unacceptable. For the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Something felt wrong. I couldn't explain it. But every time I replayed his reaction, the feeling got stronger. Eventually, I called my mother. Margaret Carter had spent 30 years teaching middle school students, and somehow emerged with infinite patience and a terrifying ability to spot nonsense. Honey, she said, after listening quietly. What does your gut tell you? I stared out my condo window. My gut says his reaction wasn't normal. She remained silent. Then she asked softly, what are you thinking? I hesitated. Then I told her, I want to transfer everything to your name temporarily. The line went quiet. That's a big step. I know. You trust me that much. More than anyone. Mom laughed softly. Well, that's probably healthy. Over the next week, I met with my lawyer and financial advisor. The paperwork was extensive. Investment accounts, property records, ownership transfers, everything legal, everything documented. By the time it was finished, I technically owned almost nothing beyond my car, personal belongings, and roughly $30,000 in checking. The rest belonged to my mother. Then came the moment of truth. I invited Ethan to dinner. The entire drive there. My stomach twisted itself into knots. Part of me hoped I'd been wrong. Part of me prayed he would laugh and tell me none of it mattered. When I arrived, he greeted me with a cautious smile. "Have you thought more about the prenup?" I nodded. "I have." His eyes brightened, and I reached across the table. "You were right." The transformation was immediate. "Really? I trust you." His face lit up. "Oh my God." He practically jumped out of his chair. He hugged me tightly, covered my cheeks with kisses. "I knew you'd understand." I smiled. "Then I delivered the second half. So I don't need a prenup anymore." His grin widened. "But I did make one financial change." His arms loosened. "What kind of change?" "I transferred my assets to my mother's name." The smile vanished. Instantly. It was so sudden, it actually frightened me. "What?" "My lawyer recommended it for estate planning purposes." The room went completely silent. "The condo. The investments. Everything." His eyes stared into mine. Cold, empty, disbelieving. "You gave your money to your mother, technically." "Yes." His breathing became shallow. "But we'll still build our future together. My salary is more than enough to start a family." Long silence. Then, he whispered something that sent chills through me. "That was supposed to be our future. Our future. Not your future. Not our marriage. The money." I felt my heart sink. "Ethan," I said quietly, "why does it matter whose name is on the assets?" His jaw tightened. "It changes everything." I suddenly realized I wasn't looking at the man I thought I knew. I was looking at someone desperately trying to hide disappointment. And failing. A few minutes later, he stood. "I need time to think." Then he walked out. 4 days later, a letter arrived from a law firm I'd never heard of. And when I opened it, I realized the nightmare was only beginning. I remember staring at the lawyer's letter for nearly 10 minutes before reading it a second time. The first time had left me too stunned to process what I was seeing. According to Ethan's attorney, I had engaged in financial misconduct. I had supposedly deprived my fiancé of assets he reasonably expected to share. I had allegedly caused emotional damages. They demanded that I reverse every transfer, disclose all financial records, compensate Ethan, and cover legal fees. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was absurd. Then I called my lawyer. She listened patiently while I read every line aloud. When I finished, there was a long pause. Finally she said, "Lisa, this is nonsense." "That's what I thought. You're not married." "I know. There are no marital assets." "I know. The transfers were legal." "I know." Another pause. Then she sighed. "This feels less like law and more like intimidation." That was exactly what it felt like. My attorney drafted a response immediately. Professional. Firm. Very short. Essentially telling them that all transfers were legal, no marital rights existed, and any further claims would be vigorously defended. I thought that might end things. I was wrong. That same evening, Ethan appeared outside my condo. The condo that technically belonged to my mother now. I saw him through the doorbell camera. His eyes were red. His face looked exhausted. For a moment, my heart softened. Then I remembered the lawyer's letter. I opened the door, but left the security chain attached. "Lisa." His voice cracked. "Please." I folded my arms. "What do you want?" "We need to talk." "I thought your attorney already spoke for you." His face tightened. "That wasn't my idea." "Really? My friend Mallory convinced me I needed protection." I almost laughed. "Protection from what? What you did?" I stared at him. "What exactly did I do?" "You hid everything." The frustration I'd been suppressing finally surfaced. "I legally transferred my own property." "You tricked me." "No." His voice rose. "You told me you trusted me." "I do trust you." "Then why move everything?" "Because I don't need a prenup if I don't own the assets." His eyes filled with tears again. For a second, I saw the version of Ethan I had fallen in love with. Then something shifted. The tears disappeared. The anger returned. Your mother put you up to this. That surprised me. My mother? She never liked me. I blinked. That was news to me. Margaret had always been polite. Always invited him to family dinners. Always remembered his birthday. Always bought thoughtful Christmas gifts. Yet, somehow, she had become the villain. Ethan, I said carefully. Just answer one question. What? If the money doesn't matter, why are you so upset? Silence. He looked away. Then back at me. Because that's our future. We can build a future without those assets. That's not the point. Then what is? His jaw clenched. For several seconds, he said nothing. Finally, he whispered. You lied. I almost admired the way he twisted the narrative. Almost. You threatened legal action against me. You manipulated me. We're talking in circles. His expression hardened. Then he turned and walked away. I watched him disappear into the darkness. And for the first time since meeting him, I felt absolutely nothing. No guilt. No sadness. Just exhaustion. 3 days later, my mother called. The second I heard her voice, I knew something had happened. Lisa. What is it? You'll never guess who showed up here today. My stomach dropped. Ethan. And his mother. I closed my eyes. Of course. What did they want? What do you think they wanted? I already knew. The assets. They spent nearly 40 minutes explaining why I should transfer everything back. I rubbed my forehead. Please tell me you didn't entertain it. My mother laughed. The sound was dangerous. Oh. I entertained it. I frowned. What does that mean? It means, I listened politely. A pause. Then, I told them if they didn't leave my property immediately, I would call the police. I burst out laughing. Mom? They did not appreciate that. I imagine not. Her voice softened. Honey. Yeah, this isn't normal. I knew. The fact that she felt the need to say it anyway told me how concerned she had become. After we hung up, I hoped things would settle down. Instead, they escalated. The Facebook messages started first. Friends of Ethan's, former classmates, people I barely knew. Every message carried the same theme. You're being unfair. You're hurting him. You should compromise. You should give him another chance. One person wrote that I was destroying true love over money. Another claimed I was emotionally abusive. A third informed me that successful marriages required sacrifice. None of them seemed interested in asking why Ethan had refused a prenup and immediately hired lawyers when the assets disappeared. My favorite message came from Mallory, the lawyer friend. You realize hiding assets from a partner can be considered financial abuse? Right. I stared at the screen, then typed back, we were never married. Delete. Also, he refused a prenup. Delete. Finally, I settled on something simpler. Please stop contacting me. Then I blocked her. Monday morning brought a new surprise. An email from Human Resources. I knew something was wrong. The moment I saw the subject line, mandatory meeting, my stomach twisted. An hour later, I was sitting across from an HR representative. Apparently, someone had submitted an anonymous complaint regarding my behavior. The report claimed I had been acting erratically, making threats, discussing ways to hide money, avoid legal responsibilities. The accusations were vague enough to avoid specifics, but detailed enough to cause concern. As I listened, realization slowly spread through me. Daniel, Ethan's roommate, he worked in another department at my company. I had completely forgotten. The complaint had almost certainly originated there. Thankfully, my manager immediately supported me. My performance reviews were excellent. My behavior had been consistent. There was no evidence of any misconduct. Still, sitting in that room felt humiliating. When I left the meeting, I understood something important. This was no longer about a failed engagement. This had become a campaign. That night, my phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. The first direct message in days. I opened it. This isn't over. My chest tightened. Another message appeared. You think you're smarter than everyone. then a third. But people are going to learn who you really are. I stared at the screen. A month earlier, those words would have broken my heart. Now they only confirmed my fears. I took screenshots, forwarded everything to my attorney, added them to a growing folder labeled Ethan. The folder had become disturbingly large. Then, I poured myself a glass of wine, opened my laptop, and started searching for a new apartment, because deep down, I had a feeling things were about to get much worse. I just didn't know how far Ethan was willing to go. Things got worse. Far worse. A week after I started apartment hunting, a friend sent me a link with a single message. "Lisa, I think you need to see this." The link led to a blog. At first, I thought it was some random relationship website. Then, I saw the title. "When Prince Charming Turns Broke." My stomach dropped. I clicked, and there he was. Not by name. Not directly. But anyone who knew us would immediately recognize the story. According to Ethan, he was the victim. The betrayed fiancé. The man whose future had been stolen by a manipulative woman, obsessed with money and control. I sat in silence reading post after post. Each one painted a version of reality I barely recognized. He promised me a life together, then hid everything. Financial manipulation in modern relationships. When her mother becomes the third person in the relationship, red flags I ignored. The comments were even worse. Thousands of strangers offering sympathy, calling me abusive, controlling, narcissistic, gold-obsessed. Some encouraged him to sue me. Others shared stories about terrible ex-partners. And Ethan responded to almost every comment, adding details, twisting memories, rewriting history. According to his blog, I had isolated him from support systems. Reality. We spent most weekends with his friends. According to the blog, I used my wealth to control him. Reality. I had never once restricted his spending. According to the blog, I conspired with my mother to steal his future. Reality. The assets had always been mine. The most ridiculous post was nearly 3,000 words long. It argued that suggesting a prenup was emotional abuse, then somehow argued that not sharing assets without a prenup was also abuse. The contradiction was breathtaking, yet people believed it, because they only heard one side. That blog became Ethan's full-time job. Every few days a new article appeared. Every article generated more sympathy, more attention, more outrage, and Ethan loved every second of it. Meanwhile, things at work became uncomfortable, not disastrous, just uncomfortable enough to wear me down. People whispered. Conversations stopped when I entered break rooms. Someone left a printed article about financial abuse on my desk. Another coworker asked if everything was okay, in a tone that suggested they already believed the rumors. I kept my head down, focused on work, documented everything, and waited. Then Ethan crossed another line. By then, I had found a new apartment. Nothing extravagant, just a fresh start. A chance to put distance between myself and the disaster. 2 weeks after moving in, the property manager called. "Ms. Carter, I have an unusual question." My stomach immediately tightened. "What is it?" "A man named Ethan Brooks has listed you as a personal reference." I nearly dropped my phone. "What?" "He's applying for the apartment directly above yours." For several seconds I couldn't speak. "He wants the unit above mine. Apparently." A cold feeling spread through my chest. I had moved across the city, changed routines, started over, and somehow he had found me. I carefully explained the situation. Former fiancé, ongoing legal disputes, harassment concerns. The manager listened quietly, then thanked me. A few days later he called back. The application had been denied. Officially, due to income verification issues and reference concerns. Unofficially because nobody wanted that level of drama in their building. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt unsettled. Because normal people don't follow ex-fiancés across a city. Normal people let go. Ethan wasn't letting go. The next attack arrived through wedding vendors. One morning, my phone began ringing. The venue, the couture, the photographer, the florist. Every call sounded nearly identical. "Just confirming your cancellation request." What cancellation request? The email we received. I didn't send an email. Confusion. Silence. Then realization? Someone had created an email address nearly identical to mine. One letter different. Close enough to fool vendors. Far enough to avoid immediate detection. The fake account had been sending cancellation requests, attempting to terminate contracts, generate fees, cause financial damage. My attorney became involved immediately. Cease and desist letters were sent. Evidence was preserved. Screenshots multiplied. The Ethan folder grew larger. Then my mother called. She was laughing so hard, she could barely breathe. Mom? Oh my goodness. What happened? You are never going to believe this. I leaned back on the couch. I probably will. No. She laughed again. You won't? Try me. Ethan's father called. That actually surprised me. He did. He wanted to discuss how a real woman should take care of the man she loves. I stared at the ceiling. You're kidding. I'm not. What did you say? I asked why his son refused to sign a prenup if money wasn't important. I burst out laughing. Mom continued. He hung up immediately. Sounds about right. The absurdity would have been funny if it weren't so exhausting. Then, life delivered one of the most ironic twists I've ever experienced. A week later, my financial advisor called. His voice sounded unusually excited. Lisa. I thought you'd want to hear this immediately. What happened? Remember that technology company you invested in 3 years ago? Yeah. They were acquired. I sat upright. Seriously? Very seriously. My heart began racing. How much? He gave me the number. I nearly choked. The investment had increased by roughly $400,000 overnight. $400,000. I sat there stunned. The assets Ethan had become obsessed with were now worth dramatically more after. More than they had ever been during our relationship. And because they remained protected under my mother's name, there was absolutely nothing he could do about it. The irony was almost poetic. That evening, a text arrived from an unfamiliar number. I already knew who it was. You're going to regret this. Delete. No one will ever love you the way I did. Delete. Then one final message. When you're old and alone, remember this. I stared at the words. For a moment, I thought about responding. Then, I typed a single sentence. Your version of love required lawyers. I blocked the number. And for the first time in months, I slept peacefully. Because something inside me had finally changed. The fear was gone. The guilt was gone. The confusion was gone. All that remained was a simple question. How much further would Ethan go before reality finally caught up with him? I was about to find out. Reality caught up with Ethan much faster than either of us expected. After I blocked his number, he refused to disappear. New numbers started texting me. Then, fake social media accounts appeared. Mutual friends received messages, asking them to help us reconnect. At one point, a handwritten letter arrived at my office. 12 pages, front and back. A rambling manifesto about how I had destroyed his faith and love, stolen his dreams, and ruined his future. Reading it felt like stepping into an alternate universe. Every accusation he made was a confession of something he had done himself. By then, though, I was finished reacting. Everything went into the lawyer folder. Everything was documented. Everything was ignored. Then karma quietly entered the story. Not dramatically, not all at once, just one consequence at a time. The first sign came through LinkedIn. I noticed Ethan had suddenly updated his profile, open to work. That caught my attention. A few days later, I learned why his PR firm had terminated him. Ironically, it wasn't because of me. It wasn't even because of the blog itself. The real reasons were far simpler. He had been publishing blog entries during work hours, using company computers, using company resources, discussing ongoing legal disputes publicly, and attracting attention that reflected badly on the firm. Several clients had apparently discovered the blog. Management was not impressed. The man who spent months accusing me of sabotaging his future had managed to sabotage his own. The consequences arrived quickly. Without his stable income, Housing options disappeared. He failed approval requirements for an expensive apartment he wanted. He moved back in with his parents. The expensive Audi he constantly referred to as his car had to be sold. I later learned it had always been leased. The victim blog began changing tone. The articles about betrayal gradually became articles about resilience. The dramatic stories became motivational posts. But the audience disappeared. People who follow online drama rarely stay for personal growth. Traffic dropped. Comments vanished. Attention moved elsewhere. Then something happened that I never expected. My mother called one afternoon. Lisa. Her voice sounded strange. What happened? I ran into Ethan's father. I nearly dropped my coffee. Seriously. At a grocery store? How did that go? There was a long pause. Then she said something I never thought I'd hear. He apologized. I blinked. What? He apologized for everything. For several seconds I couldn't speak. Margaret continued. He seemed embarrassed. Embarrassed. He said they recently learned the full extent of Ethan's financial situation. A knot formed in my stomach. What financial situation? More silence. Then came the answer. Debt. A lot of debt. Credit cards. Personal loans. Missed payments. Years of living far beyond his actual income. I sat frozen. Every piece suddenly started sliding into place. The panic over the prenup, the obsession with the assets, the legal threats, the rage, the manipulation, the desperation. It had never been about trust. It had never been about love proving itself. It had never even been about marriage. It had been about rescue. My money represented an escape route, and when that escape disappeared, everything else followed. Then Ethan's father revealed something even worse. According to him, there had been another engagement years earlier, another woman, another relationship that ended when financial questions surfaced. Afterward, Ethan had allegedly told everyone he was the victim. The similarities were impossible to ignore. When the call ended, I sat quietly for nearly an hour. I thought learning the truth would feel satisfying. Instead, it felt sad, because somewhere along the way, Ethan had stopped seeing relationships as partnerships and started seeing them as opportunities. I assumed that was the final revelation. It wasn't. A week later, I received an unexpected message. Daniel, Ethan's former roommate. The same man who had indirectly contributed to workplace rumors. He asked if we could meet for coffee. My first instinct was to decline. Curiosity won. We met at a small cafe downtown. Daniel looked uncomfortable from the moment he arrived. After several awkward minutes, he finally spoke. I owe you an apology. I nodded but stayed silent. I believed everything he told me. His eyes dropped toward the table. I helped spread some of those stories. I know. I'm sorry. The sincerity in his voice surprised me. Then he leaned forward. There's something else. My stomach tightened. What? After Ethan lost his job and moved out, Daniel had helped clean the apartment. During the process, he discovered several notebooks. Detailed notebooks? Planning notebooks? At first, he assumed they contained work material. Then he opened one. Inside were pages of notes. Notes about me, my investments, my accounts, financial statements Ethan had secretly photographed, information about my assets, observations about my spending habits, strategies for handling prenup conversations, potential ways to gain financial access after marriage. Pages and pages and pages. One note stood out above everything else. Margaret Carter, primary obstacle. I felt physically ill. Daniel looked horrified. I swear I didn't know. I believed him. He was never planning to sign a prenup. Was he? Daniel shook his head. No. The answer came instantly. He thought if he created enough emotional pressure, you'd eventually give in. For a long moment I couldn't speak. All those arguments, all those tears, all those speeches about trust, they suddenly looked different. Not spontaneous, not emotional, strategic, calculated, designed to achieve a specific outcome. Control, access, money. The notebook confirmed what my instincts had been trying to tell me from the beginning. The person I loved had never fully existed. At least, not the version I thought I knew. After coffee, I walked outside and stood alone for a while. Oddly enough, I didn't cry. I didn't feel angry. I felt free. For the first time since the engagement ended, there were no unanswered questions left. Everything finally made sense. Today, my assets remain exactly where they are. My mother still jokes that she technically owns half my life. I'm slowly rebuilding trust. Therapy has helped, time has helped, distance has helped. A few months ago, I even started casually dating again. Nothing serious, just enough to remind myself that not everyone views relationships as transactions. As for Ethan, the last thing I heard was that he was working part-time while trying to rebuild his career. His blog hasn't been updated in months. The legal threats disappeared completely, and the social media accounts quietly vanished. The funniest part came shortly afterward. One evening, curiosity got the better of me. I looked at his Instagram one final time. He had posted a long message about financial independence and how successful people should never depend on someone else's money. The comments were brutal. Several people linked screenshots from his old blog. Others asked why his views had changed so dramatically. Within 24 hours, the account disappeared. I never checked again. Looking back now, transferring my assets to my mother was the smartest decision I've ever made. Not because it protected my money. I could earn more money. Money comes and goes. What it protected was my future. It revealed the truth before vows were exchanged. Before legal ties existed, before mistakes became permanent, sometimes people tell you exactly who they are. Not with words, with reactions, with anger, with entitlement, with panic when boundaries appear. I almost ignored those warnings. Thankfully, I didn't. And if there's one hero in this entire story, it isn't me. It's Margaret Carter, the retired teacher who stood her ground, refused to be intimidated, and protected her daughter when it mattered most. This year, she's getting the best Mother's Day gift I can find. A vacation sounds appropriate. One thing is certain, she definitely isn't getting a son-in-law.